Hey Bookies, let's go over my 2022 reading stats. I don't know what to call this video yet. So 2022 was a year. It's ended as a year. It wasn't my best. So in 2022, I read a total of, and if you're wondering why I'm looking at my spreadsheet. I do a spreadsheet now. I'll put like some little screenshots here and there because I don't feel comfortable recording my computer. But the total books I read for the year was 225. January, I read 31, which is great. That's like a book a day. And then we started to see the decline. In February, I read 22. In March, I read 29. In April, I read 21. In May, I read 24. In June, I read 20. In July, I read 18. In August, I read 18. September, I read 23. October, I read 15. November, I read 3. And December, I read a whopping 1. Yeah. Also, if you've noticed, these are stress pimples. Actually, like scars, whatever. I know I keep picking at this one.
Stop picking.
Shush, Ethan. It's been stressful. Anyways, so in 2022, I decided to do something that I've never done before with my reading, and that is to keep track of it, and not just like, like what books I've read or whatnot, but also to track the ratings and all these like different little statistics. Kate's books actually had a reading log that I modified along the way, and in 2023 I changed it up quite a bit. And she also created some charts, which I have not been able to get to work, but I found out how to do charts just off of the graph. Using her spreadsheet, I was able to get a really good determination of like my average rating, which was apparently a 4.2, which is actually better than 2023. I think 2023 I was in the 3s. And then every month I had a different sub-average rating. So like January was a 4.2. 4.24, and February was a 3.95, etc., etc. But what I'm really interested in is these little chart things. So we have like a lot of pie graphs and everything. The first one that we have on here is 2022 genre. It looks like my biggest one for 2022 was YA fantasy, which is, it tracks. The second largest was YA contemporary. And then all the other little different ones that you'll see like on my little insert over here were further subdivided by that. For subgenres, because I also tracked subgenres, we see that the biggest subgenre that I read was romance by 30%. By a long shot. And the next one at 10% was mystery. Kate had in her reading log, which I didn't change, was 2022 romance types, which I am not including in. That's one of the ones I'm not including in my 2023 one. For that one, none. 36.9. It tracks for me. Like that's just who I am. I don't really care for romance types. But the next highest was friends to lovers, which yay. That's my favorite if I had to choose one. And then other. Just other. She also tracked supernatural for 2022. My biggest was with a 51.3%, so over half was none. The next highest after that was other magic, which is just whatever. And then after that is multiple magic, so multiple different ones. I'm trying to look at what the highest one statistically was. That's not like other or multiple. Oh, witches. Witches, 4.4. Page count was really interesting. I didn't know that I had a page count type. Apparently 300 to 400 is what I read the most often. Did not know that. My second highest was 200 to 300, which tracks because I do a lot of middle grade reading as well. And then we have 400 to 500. And then the other little ones are varying. I think I only read one 700 to 800 book. This was really fun. The rereads portion of it, I did not read a reread for 98.7% of the time that I read in 2022. But I did reread 1.3% of the time. Arcs I read, 79.6% of the time I read an arc, and 20.4% of the time it was not an arc. Books that made me cry, which is another one I got rid of for 2023, 62.7% of the time I did not cry. Yay. But 17.8% of the time I almost cried, and 19.6% of the time I did cry. Books with disability, which I modified for 2023 tracking, 71.6% of that was a no, which I am definitely going to have to adjust for 2023. That's one of the ones that I'm going to be more cognizant about. When I did read a book with a disability rep, 13.8% of it dealt with mental health, and 10.7% of it dealt with physical chronic pain, and 4% was both. And this one I'm also going to fix in 2023. In 2022, 60% of the time I did not read a book by BIPOC author, and that is really a shame. Need to do better. But 40% of the time I did. But still, I need to do better. And I need to do better in this one as well. Queer books, 57.3% of the time I did not read a book with queer rep in it. 22.7% of the time I did. 15.6% of it was only side characters, and 4.4% of it was some POVs, but not all. And I think I further divided this one, if I'm correct. Let's see here. Yes. So when I did discover that there was queer rep in here, I did try to further analyze it. I had primary and secondary. Primary being that it was the main character, which I've better explained in my 2023 lineup. Secondary being other characters. So we have two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, queer, intersex, asexual, agender, aromantic, demisexual, pansexual, omnisexual, gender fluid, polyamorous, non-binary, various, and done. So with those two categories in mind, for primary, 2S LGBTQIAP+, 165 books had none of that rep in it. And my next highest would be 17 at just queer, which is just a broad term. It wasn't disclosed what specifically they identified with, so I just marked it as queer. But the next highest was lesbian at 14. For secondary, 131 of the books that I read didn't have other characters with 2S LGBTQIAP+. But those that did, 26% of, not 26, 26 of them, oh, there's a kitty. 26 books had queer rep. Again, just, they were somewhere, but they didn't disclose. And the next highest one is 16 with various, which means that multiple characters were queer and had different identities. And then after that is lesbian with 15. I also tracked what format I read the most, and surprisingly, 53.6% of books that I read were in ebook format. That's kind of surprising to me. The next highest was paperback at 24.1, followed by hardback at 20.1, and audiobook at 2.2. I also tracked if I got a copy, a finished copy gifted to me in 2022, because I thought that that would be a fun stat to check. 160 of the books that I read in 2022, I did not have a finished copy gifted to me, and I do not require that. That's just something I wanted to track. But 65 books were gifted to me. So thank you so much if you gifted the book to me, but that is not required. And then we get into BIPOC. So I wanted to track what books that did have BIPOC rep, what kind was I reading. 50.2% was none, which again, going to target to improve in 2023. But the next highest after that was 15.1 with various/nondescript. I use that as a term for ones that I knew were POC or were described as POC, but were set in like a fantasy land or something of that they didn't have what terms we would describe people in, like Black, Hispanic, Indigenous, etc., but they were POC. They were POC written by the author, so that, or it was just a various amount of different themes, which I think I fixed for my 2023 one. I wanted to be better about subdividing that just to track it better. But after that, it was Black rep with 12.9%. Again, I need to do better on that. And then various others. I don't have every nationality, ethnicity on here. Again, we'll do better. But my lowest ones were Indigenous with 0.4, Cuban, Brazilian, Syrian, and just Spanish as a broad one. So definitely need to read more Indigenous works in 2023, which I'm going to be more mindful about. And then a lot more Spanish, Hispanic books as well, and Syrian. Basically, I need to do better overall. And then DNF, I tracked that. 221 of the books that I read in 2022, I did not DNF, but 4 of them I did. So for 2023, as you can see right now, it is a blank slate because I have not started writing any reviews. I have one review because I finished one book yesterday. It's like the 2nd of January when I'm filming this. So I kept some of it the same. I still had the title, the author, the rating, and I kept my little checkboxes here because I wanted to track arcs, rereads, finished copies. Again, I don't require that, but it's just, kind of fun to look back. And DNFs. I kept genre and subgenre. And then for queer books, I just have like the yes, some POVs, only side characters or no. And then I have it divided by primary identity and secondary identity. And I also added for this one, I added Achillean non-specific and Sapphic non-specific because some books, it is an obvious Sapphic romance or they are Sapphic, they like Sapphic romances, the main characters, the other characters, whatever. But beyond that, it wasn't descriptive, so I wanted to kind of track that a little bit better because I noticed that I tend to gravitate towards Sapphic books and I just want to count that. And then I have this box where I can just write in here other identities that... why is that different color green? I don't know. Other identities that I don't get to put into these little check boxes. For disability rep, I've put quite a few, but I do have the option to add more as the year goes on. So we have autistic, ADHD, deaf, learning disability, wheelchair bound, mobility disability, TBI, PTSD, anxiety, panic attacks, mute, various other, and none. So again, I'm wanting to really fix that in 2023. I want to read more of disability rep books. For BIPOC queer author, I just lumped them together, yes or no. I'm not sure if this is going to fit for, I'm not sure if this is going to work for 2023. Right now I have it, but again, I might just subdivide it later and have BIPOC author or queer author. And then I've added some rep on here for main character BIPOC representation. I have added Black, Indigenous, Jewish, Asian, African, Southeast Asian, Latinx, Hispanic, various, and none. Again, I will add more as I go because I know I always forget and I'm just always looking to add more. I also added where I can just write specific BIPOC representation. So I've added specific BIPOC representation and specific other characters BIPOC representation so I can further account for that. And then what's really interesting is that I decided to add religion. I noticed a couple of books that I read in 2022 had some sort of religion in them that was either mentioned or integral to the plot. A couple of them being Judaism. So I wanted to track that in 2023. So I have Judaism, Islam, Christianity, paganism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Baha'i, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, Confucianism, Jainism, Shinto, Sikhism, Taoism, Zoroastrianism, Hellenism / polytheism, which is basically like Greek, the belief in Greek gods and stuff like that, multiple gods. Then we have various other and fictitious. I've added fictitious for those fantasy books where it's an obvious fictitious religion. Again, I have the trigger warning one where I'll put the trigger warnings of each book. The page count is the same, and the notes where I pop in the rest of my review. So yeah, that is how I plan to track 2023. Again, it's probably all going to be modified because I modify it as the year goes through, depending on how I'm, like what books I'm coming across and whatnot. But yeah, I think I've started with a pretty good base so far. But yeah, that is everything that I'm tracking in 2023. 2022, it was pretty bad. I did get better. I got really good at tracking, first of all, but I did get better at reading BIPOC books, but I need to step that up, especially for Indigenous reads. I need to read more disability reads, and yeah, I just need to be better overall. But yeah, that is it. So thank y'all for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Bye!